Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BZ, and you know everything. Hey, how are you? That's a crazy question right now because as I write this, cities have burned, cars have exploded, terrorist attacks have occurred, cities have been washed away. It's a wild time to be alive. So, firstly, my friend, thank you. Thank you for being here with me. I appreciate it more than you know. And if you've been paying any attention, you know I created this just for you. I am absolutely back online. It's been a few months, if not a few years, and a lot has been put out in the last few years. So thank you as well for, giving me a little grace as I kind of figure out where to from here. I have so many things that I want to talk to you about, depending on when you're listening to this. In my current space-time intersection of continuum, it is January of 2025. And I don't even know where to start. I feel like everything I'm going to talk about is going to be really useful, but absolutely kind of look at this clump of episodes that have come out previously and in the next few to kind of tune into what feels most relevant for you. I do create these with the intention of them being timeless. And it's interesting because despite my own opinions on the quality of these episodes, the content still feels like fire. And I am pretty excited about the sort of body of work that has been created thus far. If you haven't been paying attention, you would not know that I've made all of that accessible. Everyone absolutely deserves access to material and resources that will empower them to find their own blueprint for success. And I think, and I hope that everything I've created has given you permission and perhaps inspired you to really define success for yourself, to then understand how am I going to build a schematic that allows me to apply my own unique way of working, the way I cultivate and capture ideas and then translate them into reality so that you can do it over and over and over again. If we've learned anything over the last couple months, if not the last 4 years, adaptability, the ability to evolve, to change, to embrace whatever is being thrown at you is literally the foundation for how to create success. And you're going to do that in your own way. And it's probably changed a lot just in the last few years. So anywho, you can find everything literally online at zero cost at NicoleBZ.com. And the reason I'm doing this, I had a lot of people reach out and go are you crazy? And it's all of that work is everything that I do when I'm working individually with people, but that's not that accessible these days. And so the point being, if you like it, we can talk, but you deserve access to whatever it is you need in order to take that next step to turn your dreams into reality. So enough with my little pitch there. I guess one of the reasons I wanted to explain all of that is I don't even know which episode I want to come out first and how I want, I like to record things kind of in clumps. I just work best that way. That's my own secret to success. And it's every single one of these feels super useful. So today I want to talk about the method to the madness. And I teased this out a little bit. This is how you design your blueprint to build the business that works for you and supports your life and doesn't work against the grain. Something happened just in these last couple of weeks, and I don't want to say it's the new year since that's just a construct, and it's winter in the northern hemisphere, or summer in the southern hemisphere. So seasons don't necessarily feel applicable. I have my own thoughts and tuning mechanisms, if you will, but if you're not on the newsletter that I call The Loop, it's interesting because I get to talk to a lot of different people every week, and they're all around the world and they're all in different places in business and business building, but we tend to have the same conversations. And so that's one of the things that I use to kind of tune into, how can I make this relevant and applicable for you? And also I trust that you're going to find this exactly when you need it. And it's going to resonate if this is what you're looking for. When building your business, and my definition of business is something you're taking seriously. If you want to monetize that, cool. That's not necessarily what I would qualify as the metric for business. A lot of people that I work with are creatives. A lot of people that I work with are testing new ideas and in a deep experimentation. And what they've done is really lean into this business building blueprint. And that can apply like to almost anything in your life, whether that's like your fitness and your health regime, or how you want to transform your relationships interpersonally with your family or with your community. There's going to be a way that you're hardwired. And that's why I talk about it like a schematic. If you've ever looked at how like a piece of electronics is built, it's like an actual, in my brain, it looks like an energetic workflow. Like you start here, and this is where the wavelength and the signal moves through. And these are all the different connection points. And then these are like the different processing centers. And when everything is firing on all cylinders, we're now using a car engine metaphor. Stay with me. You understand how you flow and how you work. And that's when you're going to find your true sweet spot and that flow that we talk about in Conscious Luck, the Gay Hendricks Quantum Business Book Club episode. Go check that out if you haven't already. But let me get into this particular conversation because I've already been talking for 5 minutes and that wasn't even planned. When people start a business and they do monetize it and they do want to make it the thing that supports themselves and their families or their communities or their customers, their clients or buyers, they're typically doing this because they're seeking a degree of freedom. It might be time freedom. It might be financial freedom. It might be creative freedom. They've seen a gap. And it might be their own personal experience, or it might be a gap in the quote unquote marketplace, right? Never have I ever heard somebody say, I'm starting a business so I can work 100 hours a week and pay myself less than I've ever made at any job. And I often get a call when someone finds themselves in that exact situation. I'm paying myself less than I'm paying any single person on my team. I'm working 10 times as much. I am absolutely burnout, and I have lost the fire, the mojo, the raison d'etre that I had when I started this whole thing. You didn't start your business to become its bitch, but yet here you are working harder than ever, running on a hamster wheel you built. And you remember holding this dream in your hands. And let's just qualify it as freedom for the now, because I think it's freedom in accessibility and choice and agency, and the sense that you can do what you want. What you want is going to be different than what I want, which is going to be different than what, you know, your mentors or caretakers may have wanted for you. And they'll continually tell you you're not doing the right thing because it's not what they would have wanted, but you don't have what you want. And that is disappointing. What we expect and what we get literally defines our expectations. And if there is a gap between what we're getting and what we wanted, we're going to experience disappointment, potentially even more severe, like resentment or apathy. When your dreams no longer do it for you, that's the problem, right? So I know what you're asking. You're like, BZ, you've already been, where are we at now? 8 minutes. How the fuck are we going to fix this? How are we going to find our mojo? How are we going to get it back, yo? So let's talk about designing your own blueprint. I've done an earlier episode on this, and also I think it's 100% worth revisiting. You may have noticed things aren't like working the same that they used to for you, for your industry, for your community, your environment, perhaps the way you've made plans, perhaps the way that you've found and, like I said, cultivated your own ideas. Like, this is something that I've absolutely been looping on and been hearing from a lot of people for a solid 6 months now. What used to work just isn't working anymore. And that's why I wanted to brush up on business blueprint building and give you an opportunity to revisit this concept with some of my own insights that I've developed over the last couple of years, which I think that episode is a couple of years old at this point. And just to remind you, the whole point is adaptability and evolution. So this, if this is resonating with you, listen up. We're going to talk about some of the research that's come out. I'm bringing that back in the show, but essentially why you feel trapped and what you can do about it. Okay. Before we get into it, I just need to say, this will then become something you can replicate. Another thing I get to talk about with people, especially those who have been in business for 10 plus years, is this system for success. Because once you hone in on it, and it's actually really fucking simple, it's like 3 or 4 steps for you. Then you can do that to the next business idea, the next vacation you want to plan. Like, it starts to become this rinse, wash, repeat process, which is what I qualify as sustainably scaling. A lot of people have experienced a very rapid amount of growth that has left them feeling under-resourced. That might be exhausted. That might be unsatisfied, unfulfilled. Under-resourced can also mean like you don't have the cash flow that you thought you were going to have. Maybe you don't have the team that you can rely upon or the infrastructure that's going to hold you up. And so growth feels really fucking scary because they don't have this system and this blueprint. They don't know how to repeat at a rate that feels expansive as opposed to contracting. Like if I grow anymore, I couldn't take on more clients. I'm working with one business now that is literally at capacity. That's a great fucking problem to have. And also their cash flow is really struggling. So how do you grow your business when you don't feel like there's any space for growth, but yet it has to grow, otherwise you can't pay your bills? The hard truth is most entrepreneurs build a business that traps them. It starts with wearing too many hats. Yeah, I know that one hit a little close to home, right? You're doing everything yourself because you had to, right? Like it was just a team of one at the beginning. Some of us, I personally, my own blueprint for success involves team members. I would rather invest in other people who are going to do it better than I from the get to sustainably scale, but I also have multiple businesses. So that's one of my own personal hacks, just to kind of like bring you into my own process. But of course, you're going to be wearing all of the hats when you first start. There's others of us. I have a hardcore DIY ethic as well. I don't think I'm doing it the best, but I do want to be able to understand how to do the job so that I can lead people appropriately in my own businesses and the way that I work. I don't work the same as a lot of different people. And so it's really helpful for me to understand the task at hand so then I can help manage and eventually lead people so they can be super successful at what they're doing. Again, that's my own little hack. When your grind takes over and that hamster wheel starts spinning so fast, you get to the end of your day and you're like, I don't even know what I fucking did, let alone how I moved the needle. I am exhausted. And when I look at my to-do list, I didn't actually cross anything off. That is your cue, my friend. You are no longer running your business. Your business is running you. So let's firstly just look at this like addiction to all the things. That is a very common thread with every single leader and owner and creative that I've ever worked with, is that they struggle to not only see where they could let go of a few things, either delegate or delete, but when and if they do, it leads to this almost like anxious panic attack. They don't know what to do with the space. And then in that space, because they're freaking out, they either call in a whole bunch of more bullshit to do, or they start micromanaging because they're externalizing that fear and that anxiety and essentially preventing people from learning how to do the thing, being able to kind of make mistakes and therefore grow, because this person is just like overshadowing any of their own actual process and ability to kind of dig into that work and eventually truly own it. So there was a study done by the Harvard Business School that found 72% of entrepreneurs experience burnout. And that is largely due to a lack of systems and delegation. I know I don't need to back up these facts and they're fairly overarching, but I hope that by hearing that, you just recognize like you're not alone. This is totally fucking normal. Every single entrepreneur, creative, business owner, leader, trailblazer, rule breaker, rebel, like we all hit this wall, right? And according to McKinsey, who are one of the largest like consulting firms in the world, leaders who focus on systems and processes tend to free up 30 to 50% more time. And these leaders are then able to reinvest that freedom into strategic growth and innovation. Freedom isn't just about time. It's also about mental clarity and energy. You can't create your best work if you're buried in your busy work. So the first step to freedom is recognizing what is holding you hostage. So as I kind of dig into the rest of this, I'd like you to just sort of ponder and even hit pause and really think about this depending on what you're doing right now. You don't need to pull the car over, but take a minute to really think about like, what is one task that really eats up your time and it doesn't move the needle? It's a have to, but not a need to. And I kind of talk a lot about this in terms of productivity. There's a whole module on this in the anti-business school. But there are activities, there are going to be to-dos on your to-do list that really light you up. They make you feel excited and energized. You learn a lot, like my one-to-one client work, right? Like making these podcasts. Like those are time intensive and focus intensive, but I come out the other side like litty titty as fuck with a whole bunch of ideas. They're so worth it to me, right? Then there's activities that feel really laborious. As an example, like calling utility companies and like trying to figure out like, why was I charged this for that? And like, why is this bill that much more expensive? Or, blah, blah, blah. And like having to explain myself over and over and over again on the phone with those people makes me want to like cut out my own tongue. So I try to minimize that, and I absolutely batch process it, and I stack it with like a reward or like an energy inducer. So like go work out, make those calls, and then like get to read a book for a minute, right? Recognizing the positives and the negatives in your own schedule and then how you can approach that, but also looking at where am I just losing in this battle of to-dos? And perhaps there's a different way of approaching that, but first things first, just identify what are the tasks that you still take on and they're potentially eating away at your day every day. Why does delegating suck so hard? Why is it such a fucking struggle for everybody? There's some people that I've worked with. They're older clients for sure. I'm not working with them now, but every year we kind of check in around this time for obvious reasons. And every single time I had to fire my assistant. I had to fire the sort of entry level people or the shopkeepers, or like, I just can't seem to keep good people around and I don't know what's going on. And there's something there for sure. Anytime you're seeing a pattern circling, looping, the question is, how can we interrupt this? And every single leader struggles with this. The way and the why is going to be unique to you. But visionary leaders, my people, my creatives, they tend to resist delegation despite knowing it's essential and the only way for sustainable growth. For several reasons, one of these is going to jump out at you. It might be a habit, it might be ego, but let's break it down, okay? So first and foremost, there's a degree of perfectionism and control that's absolutely informing the reason why you don't want to delegate. There's a struggle here because visionaries often feel deeply connected to their work. They believe no one else will do this as well as I can, or it'll take longer for somebody to do this. Especially, it'll take longer for me to explain to somebody and or follow up with somebody than just doing it myself. All of that is 100% true. And this need for control stems from perfectionism. We just did an episode on that. There is a fear that by delegating, this will dilute the quality of your vision. It will kill your baby. But here's the thing, delegating isn't about finding someone who works exactly like you, who does it exactly the same as you would do. It's about empowering others to bring their unique strengths and skills to your table so that you can enhance, not diminish, your own results and outcomes. Studies from Stanford University, and my favorite, the D School, they show that leaders who trust their team's capabilities experience 34% higher productivity and better overall performance. The information, the data supports that not only is this possible, it's going to contribute to your success. So as you're discovering the best ways for you to delegate and who to delegate to, and it's not about the individual so much as it is the job role, that's a different episode, but this is a skill set. Are you willing to test this and experiment with this? If I can guarantee you it's going to make you more successful. That's a level 5 question, Energy Leadership Index. If I guaranteed success, what would you do in this moment? You gotta approach, I don't want to be like, you got to and you have to, because that's me telling you what to do. And I fucking hate being told what to do. And I will immediately be like, deuces, we're out. The question is just simply, am I willing to experiment with a new way of working if I promise it's going to make me more successful in the long term? There's going to be some short-term costs, some short-term struggles for long-term gains. How long am I willing to stick this out until I figure out my way of creating the success I desire? So not only does delegation feel hard because it's potentially going to dilute your vision and your success in your brain hole, not true, but that's what we're thinking. We're also very emotionally attached to our work. A lot of my people receive so much joy and fulfillment from busting their fucking asses. We have used productivity as a metric for success for a really long time. It's hardwired into our programming. And where does that come from? Because truly, there's certain people that really are truly hardwired for this level of like output, and they are stoked on 80 hours of work a week. And even when we do create that space, it does get reinvested into creativity and innovation. And they have so much fucking energy that like, it's like they're like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps on building. I have those people. They 100% exist. You might be one of those people, but if you're anything like me, you don't have a rechargeable battery in your system. My projectors out there, manifestors, let's go. That's a little human design speak for any of you that don't know what I'm talking about. Just ignore that. Tuning into where am I attached to this and why is going to be a real hot spot for you. Business is your baby. You've heard me say a million times, when you own your own business, business is personal. When you are a creative and you're handing someone one of your ideas to hold and birth into this world. I mean, you've done the birthing, so they're more like doulaing your experience. They're babysitting, if you will. It's painful at first. Like there is actual suffering that occurs when you first hand that concept or that product or that system or that service into the hands of somebody else. Visionary leaders see what others can't. And therefore, the delegation and the letting go of something is a deeply personal process. And we can fear losing touch with our creations and once again, diluting our authenticity or the true power of this thing that we've built by handing it off to someone else. That is a very real fear. But delegating doesn't mean you are stepping away from or you're dropping your baby. Like you are not dangling it off some balcony on like a 3rd-story window while tripping the light. Fantastic. It simply means you are clearing your plate so that you can be receptive to the chaos that's going to ensue. And it's like being the host at the party. Like if you're too busy, like plating all the food and serving all the food and pouring everybody's drinks and cleaning everything up, like you don't get to actually enjoy the ambiance and the connections that you've created in that moment. So by clearing your plate of the repetitive or operational tasks, that allows you to focus on amplifying your vision and really like turning that fire up underneath to just heat everything up and like coalesce all of the different pieces and ingredients that you've really been playing with, right? Think of your business as a party with all of these moving pieces. You are not only the host, you are a guest, you are potentially a performer, potentially a cook, potentially a server, but you are all of these different elements that make this extravagant, excessive, gorgeous event memorable and something that people won't stop talking about forever. Where do you fit in best? What is your native superpower? How can you really lean into that? And then where can you like hire out the rest of the support you need to make this whole thing feel seamless? So people just step into this absolutely magical experience and it feels effortless. That is what you get to create. Which brings me to my next point. You might lack some clarity around your zone of genius, that native superpower. For so many of us, we don't see what we do best because it comes so easily to us. Many visionaries don't realize that they're spending their time in areas outside of their zone of genius. And without clarity, they hold on to tasks that don't align with or support or even expand their unique tasks. I am the worst with this because what I'm really good at, firstly, I'm not very great at identifying it, but it's like, it's not a lot of fun for me. Like I wish I was having this conversation with somebody about how I've wanted to learn to play the banjo. And at one point when I first started recording, I played all of the instruments. I got the books and watched. I mean, there wasn't like YouTube had like just barely launched at this point. So I wasn't watching a lot of videos, but I was finding these used books like teach yourself the piano and teach yourself the guitar and teach yourself the drums. And so I had access to all of those instruments. We had a little studio set up in the garage of my house at that point. And I one of my neighbors while I was trying to learn drums, we literally got a note on our door with a knife fucking stabbed through the top of it. And it said, 1, practice more. 2, soundproof your space. 3, give up. You suck at drums. I have a picture of it somewhere. Oh my God, it made me laugh so hard. But the reality is I like to figure everything out. But the actual playing and performance of an instrument doesn't give me a lot of joy. I'm also really bad at it. investing time and energy into that feels like fun in my brain hole. But having gone through that now with several different instruments, what I realized is the performance factor is like not really it for me. It's the figuring it out and kind of being able to understand, like quite literally, the mechanics of those instruments, which then helped me put a microphone in front of it, which then helped me understand like what I'm trying to put this into like layman's terms, what I can play with in terms of each of those sounds to then achieve like what I hear in my head, right? That was a little bit of a tangent. Thank you for joining me on that side quest. The point being, what I'm really good at is business shit, like helping people understand the systems and infrastructure that needs to get created. And it's boring as fuck. And I remember the exact moment when I was like, you know what? If you can connect creators to what it is that they want, whatever we want to define that success or freedom as, like that's your native superpower be. So lean into that and let the artistry kind of go. Delegation is about giving yourself the freedom to operate in your zone of genius. This is the place where you are most effective and also inspired. Everything else, hand it off. I literally just worked with one of my clients, and in front of her entire team at her all hands, she fired herself as CEO and said, I will be the creative director moving forward. She's no longer doing the HR shit. She's no longer doing the finance shit. She is no longer doing like team meetings and one-to-ones and all of this stuff that felt like really annoying to her, but she kept telling herself, well, you're the boss, so you have to do all of these things. You know what being the boss means? You get to do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, you're going to need to resource your business so that the other important stuff, like all of that stuff, is absolutely crucial for the success of her business. It's just she's not going to do it anymore. There's a couple entrepreneurs out there, Richard Branson being one of them, who's infamous for running all of his different businesses and empires in like 15-minute meetings a day. So that's an hour. And if Richard Branson can do what he does in his businesses, I'm pretty dang sure you can do whatever you need to in your business. Like, no offense, but I don't think you're Richard Branson. So he is famous for saying, delegate and spend more time on the things you love. By focusing on what lights him up, he ensures that his energy and creativity stay intact. So a couple more things. We have covered why is it so hard to delegate? Perfectionism and control, emotional attachment to work, lack of clarity around your zone of genius. Two more remaining. Fear of failure, pretty obvious, judgment. And then we're going to get into the purpose of delegating. So why fear of failure? Why fear of judgment pops up? Firstly, like, how are you judging yourself, my friend? Maybe circle back to that perfectionism. But leaders often worry if they delegate and something goes wrong, it will reflect poorly on them. This fear of judgment keeps you stuck in a cycle of overwork and micromanagement. But the truth is, mistakes are going to happen. And it's in the mistakes that we actually learn. And here's the thing that I've really discovered. We all talk about a growth mindset and business culture, but if you don't embrace mistakes as a leader and you don't allow your people to make mistakes, they're not going to talk to you about potential problems, which means there's going to be emergencies coming down the line you ain't going to get told about because your people are afraid of you. So it's not just a fear of failure in yourself. It's when you're afraid your team is going to let you down and fail. Firstly, they feel that, but secondly, they will hide it from you. And that means some bullshit's going to pop up that you didn't see coming because someone just didn't fucking tell you about it. And that is a real problem in business. That is systemic across business. So if you are judging yourself that hardcore, I can guarantee you that's also being projected externally, which means your team feels it. And there's going to be fear that is absolutely impacting their ability to be successful, but to also innovate and experiment and find those real market opportunities. Mistakes are inevitable. So whether you are doing the task or someone else takes it on, the real failure is not creating space for a creative and strategic approach to problem solving. These are the two things you can bring to the table. Let your people make mistakes, especially when you're first starting to delegate. A Gallup study found that CEOs who delegate effectively generate 33% more revenue and scale their businesses faster than those who don't. This is crucial, my friend. Giving your people the space to experiment, to iterate, to improve is, again, going to increase your success. So lastly, people just simply misunderstand the purpose of delegating. It is not just to get shit off your plate. It is not to dump on other people. I hear a lot of my people being like, well, I'm afraid of I'm going to overwhelm them and I'm going to overwork them. And I hate this thing. So how could anybody else love it? No. Leaders struggle to see delegation as a way to empower somebody to discover their own success. I very purposefully hire people that work really differently than me and enjoy doing things that I don't. It's a wonderful balance. And it's so interesting, how much they'll get off on building that spreadsheet. I like looking at the spreadsheet and analyzing the spreadsheet. I don't want to be doing the data entry. And there are so many people out there who love doing that. So this isn't about just getting rid of tasks. This is a tool for growth. Sometimes people even think if I have to delegate, I've failed because it means I can't do everything. Again, we're not asking the right questions. This isn't about can you do everything? It's about do you want to do everything? So instead of recognizing delegation as an opportunity to build a stronger, more resilient and capable team, leaders think it's just about dumping. And that's not it at all. Delegation isn't abdication. It is leadership. It is your chance to mentor others, to build a culture of trust and free yourself to focus on your role as a visionary. Create an ascension plan in your organization so people have this ability to actually rise up. How do they do that? They take on new skills that are fostered by doing new tasks, and then they gain more responsibility. That's how you learn and grow, my friend. So delegation isn't just about you dropping the ball and stepping away. It's about your business stepping up. Again, this is a point worth reiterating only because I get to have this conversation over and over and over again in the years that I work with my people. No one will do it the way you do it. That might not be a bad thing. They might even do it better than you, but there will be something in the different. And when you see how someone else might approach the exact same thing, there could be a really creative opportunity in there. If you're one of my road warriors, again, you've been doing this for 10, 20 years, I know that you're going to we think this is the best way or this is the only way of doing this. Just play with maybe. And let your people flush it out. The first time they do it, it's probably going to make you crazy. The second time they do it, it's going to make you wildly uncomfortable. They're going to fuck it up. How long can you let them play that through till you get to this point of discovery of oh, actually, I think they're really getting this now. In my experience, and I don't ever like to tell people how long it's going to take. So let's just say there will be 3 solid attempts. That might be a couple weeks. Depending on the complexity of the role, even with entry-level positions, it typically takes people about 3 months to really absorb their just day-to-day, month-to-month activities and get to a place where you feel like they're seamless in their efforts. They know where to go if they have questions. There are resources built out to support them, and you feel comfortable with their performance. Make sure you have an understanding of that deadline for yourself, because that's where you can really start to lean into this ability to let go and not micromanage or continually bring doubt and fear to the table by giving them the space to incubate. So by the time they're actually ready to start taking on more responsibility or take on more client-facing activities, things that you feel like are really there's a lot of optics on in your business, or potentially there's a lot of influence that these different job tasks are going to be impacting. That's where giving yourself a real time container is going to help you understand where are you defaulting to micromanaging and control and fear and judgment and perfectionism and misunderstanding the whole purpose of bringing this person on to take these activities on in the first place. Okay, so now I hear you. You want to know how we're going to do this. So we're going to spend the rest of our times talking about that. How to reframe delegation as a growth accelerator. Firstly, see it as an investment. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a long-term investment, not only in your own success, but in your freedom. Whatever that space is that you're seeking, what would you put in there? Maybe take a minute to actually think that through. Is it a vacation? Is it a fitness regime? Is it the ability to start enjoying yourself a little bit more, getting out, having some fun, reconnecting with your people? Maybe you want to go back to school. Those are all very personal motivators, but I think actually leaning into like, why am I doing this in the first place? A lot of women especially will get into entrepreneurship because they're looking for more flexibility in their schedule so they can be in relationship with their family in a way that feels more connected and fulfilling. And then they find themselves working twice as much and working all hours and being exhausted all of the time. I'm sure there's a lot of men out there that experience this as well. And I didn't mean to gender that. I'm just hearing this a lot from my clients right now. Like, I want to spend more time with my kids. That's exactly what I'm talking about. In how can you dangle a carrot in front of you that feels so worthwhile? It empowers you to actually play this experiment through all the way to the proof, the success or fail, so that you can then hypothesize again about what's working and really create this infrastructure. And delegation is an investment. Training someone to handle key tasks might feel like a short-term drain and loss and expense, but it pays dividends in terms of long-term freedom and scalability. Focus on outcomes, not methods. Again, they're going to do it differently. It's not going to be the way you would do it. Instead of micromanaging how something gets done, set clear expectations for the result and let your team surprise you with their creativity. As you delegate, create regular check-ins that feel safe and secure for you. That might be the end of every day. That might be a Monday, Friday check-in. It's going to be really different based on you. But truly, when you think about letting this thing go, how often would you need to check in at the beginning to feel comfortable? That's the only, what do I need to do to feel comfortable letting this go? That's it. And then be aware you're not going to need to keep doing that as often. Like, at some point, you're going to move from end of day to once a week, from once a week to once a month. That might vary sort of depending on, if you're like my client who fired herself from CEO, she's going to be meeting with her leadership daily and then weekly forever, because she's put almost like all of the activities and operations of her business in their hands. So it's very much up to you to determine this frequency, but you'll know what it needs to look like based on how comfortable you are with it. You let that person, that resource know, we're going to be testing this for at least a month. We'll check in at the end of the month. If we want to keep going at this frequency, we will, and we'll repeat. But eventually, you're going to be comfortable in doing this. You're going to know how to report effectively, and I'm going to be able to like really take my hands off the wheel here. Which then, the last point, start small. If this is an entirely new space for you, delegate 1 or 2 non-critical tasks. Over time, as you trust and gain the confidence to grow, you'll find it easier to hand off larger responsibilities. And this is what I mean by building the blueprint. We haven't gotten into building like process and infrastructure. I really just wanted to focus on freeing up your time and energy in this episode. The method to the madness is giving yourself the space to turn that chaos into real creativity and innovation. You can only do that by finding your team. And your team might even look like AI right now. It might look like automation, but start small, make it non-critical, and start to build your blueprint for getting things off of your plate. Delegation isn't about giving up control. It's about gaining freedom. Visionary leaders who delegate don't diminish their impact. They amplify it. By creating space for creativity and strategy, you ensure that your vision not only survives, but thrives. So what's one task you're holding on to that someone else could handle? We started there. Maybe a few things have popped up for you. But lastly, did I say that already? Once you create this space, you're going to really start to experience your own intuitive and creative process. I've been talking for 40 minutes already, so I'm going to actually like pull this out into like a whole nother episode, I think. But once you understand your creative process and you give yourself the space to truly invest in it, you're going to start to discover whole new ways of working. And that's where you're going to be able to replicate and repeat this process, this schematic, this blueprint over and over again. A delegation map can look like tasks that are in your zone of genius, tasks that really drain you but have to get done, and then tasks that are just floating around that are like a nice to have but not necessarily a need to have. And then from there, you can really start to hone in on what resource could be assigned the draining tasks or the nice to haves. So success isn't about grinding harder. It truly is about aligning your work with your native superpowers, your natural strengths, your zone of genius. Your creative process isn't a luxury. It is literally the engine for sustainable growth, and it deserves its own space a hell of a lot more than however much time you're spending in your damn emails. Once you design your freedom blueprint, this becomes your North Star. You're continually reorienting and course correcting by revisiting this very simple process. This will guide every decision. This will solve every problem. This will highlight and give you the space to invest in every opportunity. So it's fascinating to me. And I have seen this literally thousands of times. So I 100% have not only, like, this isn't a belief or even faith-based. It's just simply the way it works to me. Doing less isn't about being lazy. It's about liberation. And when you start trusting and stop micromanaging, you create this space to think bigger, act bolder, and live freer. When my people stop doing all of the things and it almost feels like they're working part-time, that's when their business explodes in growth and they can fucking handle it. You're ready for it. That's what the next episode is probably going to be about. Creating that space, creating that readiness is when the success shows up, not before, because you're not ready for it. So on that note, I'm going to leave it there. That was a long one. Thanks for sticking this one out with me. If you got any questions, I actually didn't get through everything I wanted to. Like I said, I'll build another episode for that, but you know where to find me. Hello at Nicole BZ. That's all I got.